Whose life really gets changed by a book in adulthood? Like, your life is pretty much set once you're a grown up. When you're a child, that's when you're changeable.
Stories definitely have have power over the way we think, the way we feel and react. Whether it's a story from a comic or a book or a movie.
I think if it's a good story either way, it'll draw you in. Because once you get to that first page, a lot of the time I think it's that first page that makes you want to read the story or makes you want to put it down.
The way it affects the way I work on my stories, I think, is being able to say something through saying something else.
Thanks to this book, anytime my mom asked me what I wanted to be for Halloween, I told her, I'm like, as long as I don't have to put on a mask, because this creeped me out. Like, a lot of the R.L. Stine books, especially this one, I couldn't sleep that night, so I slept with the lights on, but I didn't mind because I knew that it was just too awesome to put down.
One of the books that inspired me to become an artist was Animal Farm. I read it while I was in high school, and one of the things that struck me about it is it was one of the first books that I read that had the second story, the story you had to figure out what it was they were talking about.
This book here, Never-Ending Story, I don't know if it inspired me to become an artist, but it is a book that changed my life.
One book that inspired me to be an illustrator was How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way. It's written by Jeun Lee and Whazamo. It was special for me because growing up in Singapore at the time, there weren't any books on how to draw comics, there weren't any comic book conventions, there weren't really any comic book artists that you could go and talk to get tips. That comics is storytelling first. You know, it's not just about here's a cool pose or here's a guy with like arms the size of a tree trunk.
The way that it would help me in my own work would be, if there's a point I'm trying to say, how can I go about this in a way that is interesting, that the reader can kind of come to it themselves based on the pieces that I'm showing them.
R.L. Stine just knew how to scare kids enough to make them intrigued, give them a few nightmares here and there, but not turn them off the books themselves, because once I read one, I'm like, that was creepy, that was cool, I want more. So I started imagining, like I said, being this character and just doodling from there, and the more I read, the more I did want to draw.
I read the book in very similar circumstances to the protagonist of the book reading his story in the book. We were up north somewhere, it was probably in the fall, and it was like a kind of stay in a cabin nature experience. And I borrowed the book from the library like the day we got in the car, and I pretty much read it in one sitting during a storm. I mean, there's just a lot of monsters and creatures and cultures and things, and I'm still into that stuff. I draw, I design costumes and characters, and details are very important to me in what I do.
Talking about close-ups, headshots, worm's eye view, and bird's eye view. But at the time, it was really revolutionary to me. I mean, it has been commented to me that my work seems rather energetic and it tells a story, and I believe that a lot of that comes from me starting to draw comics as, the first thing that I really sat down and tried to draw seriously when I was a teen.
And I think comics and novels are the same thing. You start reading it, and if you get captivated by the first or second page, you want to keep reading it. And I'll always prefer comics because they're also quicker, and I like the quick pace of them, where I'll always be in love with novels, and I'll always look back and I'll know where I started and all the Goosebump books that really got me started in drawing just by reading and getting inspired.
If I had to choose between books and comics, I think I would have to go with comics, if only because that is the medium that I've kind of leaned towards. Now, building that in with comics and writing, it means it brings a lot more depth to it for me in terms of storytelling, but the core there is in visual art, so I wouldn't be able to give up my comics.
It's the feeling of being transported that's different. Getting pulled into a comic and then coming out again, it's not as deeply immersive because more is being given to you, I think. Once you're in a book, you're really in another place. You've left yourself. And in talking about the way books as a medium where the reader brings their own experience to the table and kind of co-creates the experience with the author, of like having that experience as a 10-year-old changed the way I looked at the experience of reading and what it could do for me.
So yeah, I mean, stories are extremely dangerous. They're beautiful things and they're great entertainment, but they're also extremely suggestive. Anybody who says that stories doesn't have power, it's, you know, it's weird. I wouldn't believe them.